Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I always like to have my good friend on, Felicia Cravens. She's with the Free Radical Network. That's freeradicalnetwork.com. They do some great content, very interesting stories over there. And she brings us great stories every time she comes on the program. And also, sometime you ought to look at our archive because we have some excellent articles about her, or by her, rather, at usdailyreview.com. Felicia, how are you today?
Good, good. I'm still kind of reeling from last week's debate business, but I am sure that you have a lot to say about it, too.
Yeah.
Interesting that we got through, what was it, 17 candidates now?
Yes, that's right. And, all of this can change at any moment. I actually expected a couple to possibly just go ahead and depart after that debate. But you never know. No one did that poorly. Well, actually, Donald Trump did, but I don't think anyone noticed. Donald Trump was so sad to watch, and it just kind of shows you how much chaos and turmoil that there is out there that last week wasn't a requiem for him.
Well, interestingly, though, don't you think that he managed to get some good coaching as far as not eating up all the debate time? I was really surprised that he was as willing to hold back as he was. Now, that's not to say he didn't go, quite for the jugular with, say, Megyn Kelly or some of the other candidates up there, but I expected him to interject in almost every question, and he didn't do it.
No, he did show a lot of restraint, but, only when you have the most incredibly low expectations is that an indicator of a successful debate.
Well, yes, and my expectations were quite different, too, I'm sure. I think, though, that with some of the interesting things that happened, some of those other candidates looked a little different. Jim Garrity had a piece last week at National Review Online about how other candidates are being viewed in light of being on the same stage as Trump. And it's sort of he changes the dynamic for other candidates, making them look more serious or less abrasive or something like that. He goes into the fact that everybody thought Christie was going to be the bombastic one.
Yeah, he makes him look like a milder temperamented person. Although he did get angry, no question about it, especially at Rand Paul. And I thought I liked Rand Paul. I like Rand Paul more and more, and he and I go way back. We go back to the 1980s together, the early 80s together, and I liked him more and more. I won't say I'm in his camp by any stretch, but that little civics lesson about the Bill of Rights is so important. The total disregard, the political disregard among the GOP for the Bill of Rights is shocking. And he's absolutely right. We either need to abide by the Bill of Rights, and we need to abide by rule of law, or we need to literally change those Bill of Rights. Good luck with that. But we have an order and the way things are supposed to be done. And guys like Chris Christie are very quick to just obliterate such.
I think this is one of the benefits that we have, even though it drives me crazy. It's one of the benefits to having 17 people in this field is that we get exchanges like this instead of cookie cutter and small differences here and there. We're getting to see some substantive differences between candidates on really important issues that we have a whole year to digest. And those issues will keep coming up. And each one of these candidates brings something like that to the table. With Rand Paul, it's definitely the Constitution, things like the Fourth Amendment, all those things that involve with privacy rights. You have some of the other candidates who are bringing skill. I've said before, Carly Fiorina on the messages of abortion, that she also goes after Hillary very well and draws good contrast. This is a rich field. It's an embarrassment of riches, and I like that because it makes us talk about a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit. First of all, did you see both debates?
I did.
Okay. I get the impression that Carly would have cleaned up the evening as well as she did the early one. I was really impressed by her.
I was, too. I think she was sort of at an advantage, actually, being in the, what do they call it, the undercard debate, where the bottom 7 polling candidates were. She was able to stand out very well there, and the question, was not just how well did she do there, but she got her clip from that debate broadcast in the 9 o'clock debate.
Yes.
And that was a good indicator that she had made some major moves and that someone on that 9 p.m. stage was going to be bumped down.
Well, yeah, and the statement introducing her statement was pretty strong as well about how she, implying she dominated the earlier debate.
So indeed.
And so it was extremely interesting to watch. She's a very, very articulate candidate. She surprised me. I have a lot of mixed feelings. I have a prejudice towards California. It's not a good prejudice, by the way. And so that's a vote against her. I generally don't like the idea of someone with zero experience, even though there's a certain attraction to it, being elected to the highest office of the land. But I still sit there. I love the thing she says. There's no one other than Hillary Clinton who personally knows these world leaders like me. I was the head of a multinational company. I had to engage. I had to negotiate and do business with these. And talking about her background and how she negotiates versus Barack Obama and the Iran deal, my goodness, she obliterated Obama, who wasn't even there.
Absolutely. And this is the sort of thing you want to see the other candidates pick up. If a good candidate has a good attack line and a good strategy for punching at the administration, at the Democrats, at the institutional leftist policies that have been strangling this nation, you want every one of them to be a good student and pick that up too. So I love how each of them has something that they can lead on that the others can pick up from. And it comes sort of as a package deal. So many people forget this is a team in the end. And if, say, Carly Fiorina were the nominee, you would still want Rand Paul out there pulling the people that he can get. And you would still want Ben Carson out there pulling the people he can get. That's such a strong thing. And that, I think, is why Trump had such a horrible night. He started off on the wrong foot without pledging to be part of the team.
Yeah, I think, I give him a 50-50 on that. And I'll tell you where the 50-50 is. He's not going to get elected because of the people in that stadium. He's not going to get elected from the GOP base. He's going to get elected, if he were to get elected, because of people who have never voted in a primary before, realizing that if this game show is going to go, or this reality TV show is going to go very far, they're going to have to get off of their couch and go and vote in a Republican primary. And I can actually see that happening. I think he was sending a somewhat appropriate shot over the bow of the GOP that if I'm being mistreated, I'm not going to just go along with the gang. And he's already been mistreated. That kind of finger-pointing lecturing that the chairman of the party did at him, I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. You know what?
Right.
His opponents need to be big boys and girl, put on their big boy and big girl pants and go toe-to-toe with them, but not act like children in this whole deal, getting the chairman involved. That was, to me, ridiculous. And so, and then finally, the upside to that was that he made it perfectly clear that he was going to have integrity about it. He wasn't going to go and not raise his hand and then later on, go after an independent run. He was being honest about it. If things don't happen where I feel like I'm being treated fairly, I will go ahead and run independently. And so,
and I hope that he means that in that way and not in the if I don't get what I want, I'm going to do it, because fair. Trump throws around words, huge. Big, loser, those are kind of things that fair, I'm kind of wondering what that means. But what I find fascinating is here's Donald Trump in the same kind of alliance, almost. It's not quite happened yet, but with people who were supporting Ron Paul in 2012, the same kind of treatment that happened from the national party figures to Ron Paul delegates and people that were supportive of him that made it to conventions and such. There might be a repeat of that, only this time with Trump people.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's an interesting dynamic. There's no question about it. If Trump leverages his wealth, he could put $1 billion into the race easily, which is a national campaign race. That's way more than what's his name? Our John McCain. John McCain was able to do in 2008 way more than the McCain's race. And so there's no question about it. If he decides to take his marbles and go his own way, the GOP is post-toast.
Indeed, and it'll be interesting to see the slaughter if that does indeed happen. I will be firmly in my bunker by that time that I will have dug under my home. But, there you go.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to watch. So in the first debate, who did you like the most?
In the first debate, absolutely, Carly Fiorina nailed everything. I barely noticed anyone else, although Rick Perry did attempt to recover some ground. I don't think they'll last too much longer. He just couldn't stand out very much.
Rick Santorum just seems so whiny. He reminded me of Ron Paul in a way. They kind of, it's like, really?
Yeah, he's been through this rodeo and got knocked off for a dumb mistake that he made before. I think he tried to come back polished, but he just ended up on, at a disadvantage just from, maybe it's Perry fatigue. Maybe the reason people that are new to the race are getting so much attention is because we don't know them.
Yeah, that's always a possibility. Jim Gilmore, a good friend of the program, has been on it several times. He looked like he was just disconnected. It's like he showed up a decade late.
Right. Well, there's some of that. When you have a president who was in his 40s when elected, and people thought this was great, and this was one of the youngest presidents ever elected, and that's all wonderful. And then the other side has been running old people for, who've been around, who've been named, who, that used to count as experience. Now it counts as oversaturation. And then now, it's sort of reversed. You have a nice young field in part of the Republican side and a whole bunch of old people on the left, on the Democrat side. It's going to be interesting to see what age plays and experience plays, and whether those two are synonymous and conflated, or whether they are separated and someone's experience actually counts differently from, oh, hey, that's an old guy.
By the way, talking to my good friend Felicia Cravens, she is with the Free Radical Network. That's freeradicalnetwork.com. How about in the evening? Who did you like in the evening?
I liked the field pretty well. I thought they had a lot of good things to say, but I was surprised that Ted Cruz did not do better, and I was surprised that Marco Rubio did as well as he did. And Huckabee got a few zingers in there. I tend to tune Huckabee out completely, but he got some good zingers and woke the crowd up a bit. So,
I thought as far as quotes, he was the most quotable. But you know what's funny about Mike Huckabee? Mike Huckabee looks like an angry Bob Hope.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is a really good one.
Doesn't he? He now has his hair back, and he has a similar physical characteristics of Bob Hope, and those shoulders kind of up and head kind of down. He looks like an angry Bob Hope.
He did not come across as the way that he used to when he was on a Fox News show.
Yeah.
That was what was very interesting. This was a different Huckabee from people who were used to seeing that, and that might have been their only experience with Huckabee. So it is very different when you go from host to candidate again.
Yeah, he wasn't Mr. Affable like he is with his. What does he play, a banjo or something like that when he hosted his Fox News show? It's no banjo here. I actually did think he performed fairly well. I liked the fact that my good old friend Rand Paul went immediately after Trump. And I would have really wished when Trump said you're having a bad night that he said, or you're having a bad time tonight. I would have loved it if he had turned around, Rand had turned around and said, yeah, I'm having a hard time keeping up with your changing positions. That would have been great. That's one of those great, comebacks that unfortunately he probably thought about first thing this morning, but didn't have it last night. But I liked how he positioned himself as different from the other candidates. The thing about Trump is so problematic. They literally put him in the middle of that group, literally. And they literally ranked people according to where they stood. The guys on the end had the lowest rating numbers. That's how they got on the end. It was really kind of weird in how they did that. And then you factor in the fact that Donald Trump is 6'3". It really seemed like, he was surrounded by dwarfs.
Well, and tall is supposed to count for something in politics. I don't know. That's a new thing, or if that's a long time tradition that height does matter. It's
height
weird.
has always mattered. Height has always mattered. Yeah.
I will tell you that a couple of stats that I saw last week from after the debate. One of when the first debate, when they started talking about Planned Parenthood, Google reported on Google that searches for Planned Parenthood had gone through the roof, bringing attention to an issue that had otherwise, the media had sort of skipped. And so that was a great opportunity. I also saw that this was preliminarily the highest watched GOP debate, I think, ever, that they're saying. It was like 2 or 3 times what 2012's best one was. And a third thing, that interestingly, no candidate got more than, say, 12 minutes of speaking time. Donald Trump got the most, and then Jeb Bush, and everybody else sort of clustered between 5 and 7.5 minutes. So it was almost evenly spaced as far as who got to speak when, compared to everybody else. But Trump just had way more time, and I think that was a function of the way that things began and at the beginning of the debate. But very interesting, and there are far fewer debates this time in this cycle than there was in 2012 as well.
You think at this point?
Oh, no, the schedule that I have in front of me is there are going to be far fewer. There are 9, I think, at this point, and they numbered in the 20s last time.
I guarantee you that number's going to go up. You know why, right?
Very likely. Very likely as things narrow.
Why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it go up when you had the kind of ratings it had last week? Yeah.
Indeed. People are not going to be able to sit and watch 10 candidates do this for very long. And so some of the debates are going to have to winnow this number down a bit in order to get a workable format. But absolutely, when they start doing it, some of that, candidates might not even get to self-select. They just might drop off the media radar simply because of who chooses whom in the next debate.
Yeah, they really, as long as the Donald is in the debates, the numbers are going to keep going up. And the problem is you're absolutely right. They need to divide them up. But if they divide it up, the only ones who are going to be seen are whoever are with the Donald. That's part of the problem. I tell you, it's really, it just shows you, are you familiar with the movie Idiocracy?
Oh, indeed.
Yeah, well, we're there, sister. We have, when you see what we got happening on the political front, it's pretty crazy stuff. It'll be interesting to see how it goes along. I don't see Donald Trump going anywhere between now and November except towards becoming, in his mind, the next president of the United States. I think this guy is fully into it.
Oh, I think he's committed. I do. It's just a matter of whether the novelty is going to last as long as he does.
Yep, that's a good note to end on. All right, Felicia Cravens, appreciate you very much. FreeRadicalsNetwork.com. Good talking to you as usual.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, I do want to mention today's program is brought to you in part by the priceofbusiness.com priority list, and always appreciate spending time with you, the listener. And when we come back, we're going to have more for you right after this on The Price of Business.